I'm Dr. Deb Butler, and you are listening to Thinner Peace in Menopause and Beyond. This is episode number 459. Welcome to Thinner Peace in Menopause and Beyond. This is Dr. Deb Butler, Master Life and Weight Coach, and as always, your coach. If you're a woman and you're smart and you're successful and you've been struggling with weight your whole life, and now menopause is making it harder than ever, and you are ready to make this the last time you ever have to go on a diet again, then this podcast is for you. Stay tuned. Today, it's all about the professional woman, and really all my clients are professional, successful women, and I have a feeling that most of you that are listening are the same since all the letters I get from you sound like that. So I really want to use this year to use that mindset of yours, since that's all we ever talk about is mindset and what's going on in your head and how to be mindful about choosing thoughts that are going to help you get what you want. And let's face it, when it comes to your career, no problema. I know it. I talk to you. Whatever it takes, you're going to do it. If you don't sleep, you'll give up everything and anything to get that career going. But somehow, when it comes to your weight, you turn into a totally different kind of woman. And I believe the reason this happens is because you are not being mindful about what is going on up in your head. So, starting today and this year forward, we're really going to start working on the mindset of the professional woman and see if I can help you take that mindset and put that emphasis on your body and on your weight. And I think the best way I'd like to kick it off today is by reading a letter that I got from another podcast listener. And I think it's really interesting because as we go into this new year, I really want to help you. Number one, I want to review some of the tools that I've used over the last year. I want to review those today. And then I want to talk about why you don't use those tools when you're actually eating or sitting down to eat. And I think if you're a professional woman, if it was your career and it was a meeting that you had, I don't think you would just walk around going, I just don't know. I'm not sure if I'm going to show up. I'm not sure if I'm even going to get my plan together. I just don't know if I can do it. I have never heard that from any of you. It's like you do it, it turns out good, and you do whatever it takes. But you use that mindset when you're talking to me about your weight. And when you sit down to eat and there's food in front of you and something looks really delicious and you just go, I just don't know. I can't help myself. I have to eat it. What is that? I think what it is that you switch brains when it comes to food. It's like you just take out the brain that works for you and you let your brain just go crazy and do whatever the heck it wants, like you have no control over it. Today, we're going to talk about the control you do have. It is over your mind. You got to stop telling yourself you don't know, and you got to start telling yourself, oh, I know. And I'm not hiding from myself anymore. I'm taking care of myself and I'm on my side. And really, this is all about taking excellent care of yourself. You know how to take excellent care of your own business or your job. I want you to take that mindset and I want you to apply it to your body. And listen, I also know for those of you that have children, same mindset. You know, those kids need something. Somebody calls you in the middle of the day. Somebody's sick. You drop everything and you go pick them up. You don't say, well, I just don't know what I'm going to do. You don't. I know you don't. I talk to you. But you do that when it comes to food and when it comes to your weight. And this is where the nonsense has to stop. The letter that I got today from a podcast listener, the reason that I like it is what she was talking about is that she was asking me, and I'll read it to you, but she wants to know what to do when she goes below a -2. So when she gets too hungry, she wants to know what to do. And I've gotten a few other letters from some listeners somewhere around the same topic about what do I do when I'm already below a -2. So let me read you this letter and then let me give you some thoughts about what I have. Hi, Dr. Deb. I love your podcast and love all the tools and advice you give. I have a question about dealing with a situation where you find yourself in a -3 or more. Let me give you an example. I work in a high-pressure work environment with formal meetings that last more than 4 hours, so I don't have the option to snack or create an environment where a -2 is when I eat. Any advice for how to manage when you find yourself beyond a -2? Okay, so that's her letter, and this is the advice that I want to give. First of all, my question would be to her is, does this happen often? Because if this happens a lot, then it's more than just a long meeting. Because I think if you have a long meeting and you go beyond a -2 and you're really hungry, I think it's fairly simple. What do? If it were your child and she were suffering because she was too hungry, what would you do for her? The first thing that you would do, in my estimation, is you would first show yourself compassion, right? So you would say, oh, my sweet darling, because that's how I think you should talk to yourself and not curse yourself out because you didn't eat. It's, oh, I know the meeting went too long. I know you're really hungry. Just stay calm. We're going to get you something to eat and you will feel so much better. I mean, it's something as simple as that, the compassion to allow yourself for being so hungry and also for recognizing that you're too hungry. All of that is really being connected to your body. And then I also would probably say to myself, and we're going to get you something that's really healthy. I know you really want to eat something, anything, but I'm going to get you something that is really going to feed your body. So just stay tuned and we're going to get it for you. Does that sound a little too simple? If it does, it's because it really is that simple. Now, the problem is that when you're beyond a -2, your body is really compulsive, right? So it's hard to stay connected because your body just wants to run out and eat a donut. You know, it just wants something really, really fast. It's like an animal. It's too hungry. It's afraid it's not going to eat again, and it wants to eat. And by you calming it down, it's almost like you just say, just calm down now. Everything is going to be okay. And I really believe that'll be helpful as opposed to if you would start beating yourself up like, I can't believe you went this long and what's the matter with you and blah, blah, blah. You just calm yourself down and get yourself something to eat. Now, what I think the real problem is off of these letters that I get is that if this is more habituous, if this is something that you do a lot, then I really ask, why do you ignore yourself? Why aren't you paying attention to yourself? Why aren't you prepared? Now, if you're in a meeting for 4 hours and you do this a lot, I will take you back if this were your child and she were at school and she was getting too hungry and she had to eat. What would you do? Would you tell your child, oh, honey, just tough it out? No, I don't believe you would. I believe you would go and you would talk to the teacher or you would talk to the school or you would take it to wherever it needed to be to make sure that your child ate when she needed to, for whatever reason, if she was hungry. Now, with you, it needs to be the exact same thing. What would you do for you if you knew that you had to eat and you were in this long meeting? Now, with that smart mind of yours that you use in your business, how could you eat within that 4 hours if you had to? I think when you start telling yourself, I just don't know and I just can't do anything about it, then I believe you really can't do anything about it and nothing's going to happen. But I think if this happens on an ongoing basis, then the beginning is just checking in with yourself and seeing where you are and knowing that you are going to be hungry during this meeting. How could you feed yourself? I'll tell you what I would do, and this might sound silly, but what I would be doing is probably, I hope they would allow me to go to the bathroom. I would go to the bathroom. I would have something that I could eat that would bring me back up into some of the normal numbers. And the reason that that would be so important is because, listen, when you're below a -2, you don't think right. If you have a child and they get too hungry, they are not fun to be around. That is what's going on inside of you too. You're not thinking right. Your body's not right. Your mind's not right. By eating, by allowing you to get something to eat, I don't care if it's in the bathroom. I don't care where it is. I don't care if you have to say you're a diabetic. If your body needs to eat, how important is it to you to feed it? And I think when you have excellent self-care, that means really paying attention to the needs of your body, you figure out a way to do it. Now, if this just happens every now and then, I think my first piece of advice about showing yourself compassion and taking care of yourself as soon as you can is the best advice. But I'm not about telling you what to do, half as much as I'm asking you what goes on in your mind that leads you to doing what you do. And what we want to know is what goes on in your mind that leads you to allowing yourself to go beyond negative twos on a regular basis. And I do believe that it is taking that mindset and allowing yourself to think that what goes in your body and eating on a regular basis is as important as a 4-hour meeting. And I think when you start thinking like that, what you do and how you take care of yourself will change. Now let's do a little review about some of my tools with the physical hunger scale and the emotional hunger scale. Do you remember, like when we first started, I said that, and you can find this in my companion book, which you can get at drdebbutler.com/change, where it shows you the physical hunger scale from a -10 to a +10, and that when you begin to eat, I always want you to be paying attention to that gas tank inside of you as it's going down from 0 to -1 to -2, and to be prepared. It's like you learn to know your body enough that you know when it's going down and you need to be ready for it, right? So we're eating at a -2 and we're stopping at a +2. And a +2 is very light, airy, energetic. In other words, when you're through eating, you don't feel like taking a nap. You feel like going for a walk. That is the biggest difference between like a +2 and a +4 or 5. +5, you don't feel like going for a walk. You kind of feel like taking a nap. And of course, if you go any higher than that, I always said to you, like around Thanksgiving, when I was like at a +8, I wanted to take my clothes off. So we all have physical sensations in our body and things that we want to do when we hit certain numbers. And what our podcast listener was talking about today was when she's going below a -2, right? When she gets too hungry and what it feels like. So basically, we eat at a -2 and we stop at a +2. It's not a very big range and it's not a lot of food. And that's one of the biggest ahas for so many people when they start with me is like, I don't need to eat as much food as I've been eating. I don't need to clean my plate. And there's so many podcasts that I've talked about why we want to clean our plate. And when we're listening to our body, it's not about cleaning our plate. It's about stopping when our body says, +2, time to stop. Thank you very much. Right? We're listening to our body and we're not listening to what our mind says. Oh, you got to eat all your food. You can't waste your food. Oh, it looks so good. These are all the things that the mind says, and it overrides the basic body instinct. And all of these podcasts have been dedicated to connecting this mind and body, right? So mind says, oh, clean your plate, but the body says, no, I'm done, right? And we connect it up and the mind says, oh, I get it. And the more that we start training the mind to listen to the body, the stronger the connection. Now, I'd like to read to you another letter that I got from another listener that's a little bit of a different angle, but the same problem. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit too. And I think between both of these letters that I got and some of the review that I went over about our physical hunger scale will help you going forward about really deciding that you and your body are the most important thing when you're thinking about what's going on with you. That number one, that is your priority. How hungry am I? How full am I? Where am I emotionally? Remember, we talked about the emotional hunger scale too. from a -10 to a +10? Where am I emotionally? And the last podcast, I went over the emotional hunger scale and did an actual recording with one of my listeners about the emotional hunger scale. That was episode number 38. And if you want to know more about the emotional hunger scale, that would be a wonderful podcast to refer to. But right now, I want to read you another letter from another listener about what happens when you go below a -2. Hello, I'm finding your podcast very helpful, and I have a question for you. What do you recommend when you know you've gone beyond a -2 in hunger and you're going to start eating? Yesterday, my daughter and I spent hours walking around New York City. Before we knew it, we were starving and debating about how to get something to eat in a mindful way. Looking forward to your response. Okay, so this letter is pretty similar to the other letter, different situations. But what I want to talk about in both of these is that it's much more difficult, really, to attend to a negative, below a -2. It is more difficult to attend to it. And so the only mindfulness that you can use is really compassion to calm everybody down while you get something healthy. But the other side of this is what she says in her letter is before we knew it, we were so hungry. That is what really needs to change is there's no such thing once you're really paying attention. You don't allow that to happen to you, right? Like all of a sudden, it's like when my smart, brilliant clients say to me, I just don't know what happened. I just don't know. The reason we don't know is because we're not paying attention. We're not making it a priority. I get it. You're in New York City. You're having a fantastic time. You're with your daughter. That doesn't mean you lose the connection with yourself just because you're having a good time. When you're having a good time, you train your mind and body to stay connected with each other so that it's not all of a sudden you know it and you're starving. It's like you're knowing all the time that it's getting time to eat. And pretty soon, it's almost like you just don't allow it. Now, I don't want you to be hard on yourself, and I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying that if it is more your way of not paying attention, and this is just one of those symptoms, that's how I'm looking at this letter, is I'm assuming this happens a lot. If it doesn't happen a lot, you show compassion. But if it's something that happens, then what I want you to do is, number one, is show compassion to yourself. Number one, that you've been ignoring yourself for so long that you're not connected to understanding that you've got to really watch as it's going down. As the gas tank is starting to empty, it's time to getting ready to refill it. And it's a quick check-in. It's just a quick check-in. How you doing, body? And the more you start doing that, it's almost like setting a timer, and every hour, maybe you need to check in with your body and say, how hungry am I? I know you're busy. You got a lot going on. I know it. We all do. That doesn't mean you lose the connection to your body. So what I would recommend to this reader is, number one, compassion. Calm yourself down as you get something to eat, knowing very mindfully that your body is going to be asking for things and wanting to eat a lot more because it's too hungry and it can't make a good decision. And so you can use your mindfulness to help calm it down. The other side of this coin, as with the other letter, is I want you to take the approach that you and your body is the most important thing, and that above all things, that you will make sure that you will take care of it before it gets to a -2. So when you're at a -2, you are ready. The more you do that, the more you train your brain to connect, and the more it will do it automatically. But if you haven't been doing, then the automatic response is going to be to ignore it, right? So you're in the midst of changing that. And I can't think of anything better for this new year than to decide right now that the most important connection is this mind-body connection. I know what's going on in my mind. I know what's going on in my body, and I am observing both of them and will take care of it. It is most important. It is as important as my career. It is as important as my children. I am important. I deserve excellent self-care from myself. Those are the thoughts that you want to start to acquire and to start practicing on. And you will see that the more you use them, then when you're in a very busy situation like in New York City, you will be mindful before you get to a -2, where it's much easier than after. If you're in a long meeting and you know you're going to be in that, and that's what you do on a regular basis, then instead of acting like that there's nothing that you can do for yourself, if this were a business situation, how would you figure it out so you could eat? And that is how I want you to start this new year. So listen, I want you to be very, very, very kind to yourself. And if you need to learn compassion for yourself, you know that you can talk to me and have a free mini session by going to drdebbutler.com/work with me. And I can help you learn how to connect that beautiful mind and body of yours up. It's the new year. I have a wonderful individual program where it takes you through everything. So I want you to think about that, and I want you to be very, very kind to yourself. Bye-bye. If you're loving my podcast and you would like some more information to be able to follow along with, then please go to drdebbutler.com/change, and you can get a free copy of my companion book that goes with this podcast that I refer to in many different episodes. That is drdebbutler.com/change, CHANGE.